Hello, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to everyone. Thank you very much. We are here to begin the regular teaching session. This term we are reading the reflection on many sutras called Collection Sutra called Wise and Foolish. So before we start, we will do the regular prayers, which is to renew our refuge. That means how to stay safe in our thoughts, because if we are not able to screen our thoughts, we can be hijacked by our thoughts. And if we are safe in our thoughts, that means we have to be careful with how we form those thoughts. That's a refuge, Refuge isn't some ceremony. Refuge is some start of a journey. So every day we have to try to check how to screen our thoughts and how many of them are our defilements, our fear, our negativity. How some thoughts are good and kind and faith and compassion and all of that. So when we're talking about refuge, it's like a formality to renew our commitment to practice that. You can see the road got safety. Everywhere you go to stay, there's a safety. But here we're talking about how to renew our sensibility. So with this reminder, let's do the prayers. Thank you. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Sangha Ajere Vijalada Bhavachu Ajevandala Ajare Vadavadruve Enda Buddha Dharma Sangha Ajere Vijalada Bhavachu Ajevandala Ajare Vadavadruve Enda Buddha Dharma Sangha Ajare Vijalada Bhavachu Ajevandala Ajare Vadavadruve. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never from the happiness and no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. Go to the intelligent and de position de Yadandarama Agrela Egom Egos. So, as you know, to as many as 51 stories. So each of the story is named after the people or whatever the events are. But the theme is that there is always two, wise and foolish. And the kind of what foolish mistakes some people may have made in the story told. Buddha is able to explain the consequences of the foolishness or consequences of wise decisions, such as generosity, sacrifice, patience they practice in those past lives, and how the wise decisions, the wise responses or wise action, how they come into positive fruition in the next life. So it's a very central to Buddhist teachings, the existence of law of cause and effect and a law of rebirth. Now, Buddhists with beliefs in these two, law of causality and existence of former lives and existence of future lives, unless one reaches the full enlightenment, then of course there's no life that is dictated by karma, but you still can have future incarnations, even as a realized being. These days, people looking in Buddhism, they think they cut and chop as they can have Buddhism without beliefs. And then they think it's therefore very scientists. So Buddhism definitely encourages people to investigate, check the teachings. That's very sure. But some people think that encouragement to examine the teachings will license them to cut off some of the fundamental beliefs in Buddhism. Such as not believing in future lives because they couldn't see or something, because they're so materialistic. Or not knowing how could we prove that this is the result of past actions. And of course, no one can. But the wise people sometimes give advice, not because they can prove you, but they know it is the right decision. They would say, be patient. Of course, there's no proof the benefit of being patient will yield you good results straight away in this couple of hours or couple of months or or even whole life. But the belief that practicing patience is a wise and good thing to do, because you can see if you don't practice patience, you exacerbate, you react and overreact, make things worse. The consequences of impatience is far more heavier than anything else. So while it may be harder to be patient now, but the benefit of being patient now will yield later on lots of stability and immovability and strong like a mountain and not shaken very easily by things happening. You see them as totally ordinary. You can see them as very ordinary and basic. It's a life. That's life. And that's what the wise is. The Sutra wise is you'll be able to stay like that and not get thrown away every now and then. Something's happening and you don't get shaken by things because you're wise. You have the moral and habitual authority not to be shaken by things if you learn to be patient. today and tomorrow and over this issue, over that issue. It's not a question of who's right and who's wrong. We don't waste time in trying to do that. Try to see what's the wise response. How can we make sure that difficulties can teach us something good? Patience means enduring hardships when most people don't want to tolerate it. And the foolish don't practice tolerance, and few wise do. Only wise are very few, by the way. Wise are very, very few. Foolish are very, very many. Majority are very foolish because it's called mob violence. Mob violence. You follow with the mob. So that's why we will read through this story, chapter 22 tonight, and maybe 23. We will read 2 chapters. By the look of the length of the next one, that's all we can do. Okay, so when I read the sutra, the sutras are translated, and its actual story is not hard to fathom. Such and such, this happened there, and he did that. But we need to look at how many of our unfoldings, stories in our lives, or some people's life around us, we don't understand. And this is the whole idea of looking at these stories so that we can understand our life and its difficulties. Okay, it starts with, thus I've heard at one time, the enlightened one, of course this is the Buddha, was residing in the city of Sharavasti at the Jetavana monastery in Anathapindika's park. So this is the same place, and the person, the Shakyamuni Buddha, was in Jetavana. And then what is the central part of the story? At that time there was a wealthy householder in that country. Usually they're talking about a wealthy. This doesn't mean that's the only wealthy person. A householder in the country who had married a woman of his own caste. This means those in the old days, people think they're only married to their own caste. Sounds very Indian, doesn't it? Some people may even do that in the modern days. But India has 4 castes, Brahmins and Kshetris and traders, and then the kind of outcasts. And was exceedingly sad because no son had been born to him, So in those days, they not only married the same caste, but always wanted to produce their children in order to procreate their own caste. I think their caste is so special, it has to be procreated. He prayed to all the gods, and finally his prayers were answered. They don't talk about having gone to a doctor or test tube baby clinic or something like that. It's very kind of a ancient story. They go to the gods and they take flowers and fruits to the gods and strew some red paint on the gods, and then put a dot on their throat, and then they come home and the next day their wife is pregnant. So that's the belief. People used to believe that God. His wife became pregnant, and when her time was fulfilled, a son was born who was handsome and comely. The parents and relatives all rejoiced and held anointing ceremony on the banks of great river. So this is these days they call Navaran ceremony. Navaran ceremony. This is very Indian. The anointing ceremony. It's like when a baby is born. I don't know what equivalent you have, maybe christening or something. But christening is more like a religious, isn't it? More religious, but maybe just a special sort of, sometimes naming ceremony. Anointing ceremony could be naming ceremony, because the Navaran ceremony is a naming ceremony. I get asked by quite a few Nepalese families in Canberra who are both Buddhist and Hindu, but they always think a priest should come and do the Navaran ceremony. So. So I don't know whether you could remember such a ceremony do when you gave birth to your son or daughter or sister or something. And a ceremony on the banks of a great river. The Indians really worshipped nature. They believe the river is like Ganga. Ganga is a goddess. Ganga, the word Ganges, we call Ganges. English call it Ganges. English totally corrupted the very meaning of the Ganga. Ganga sounds like a goddess. English call it Ganges. Ganga is a name of a goddess. During the celebration, while the child was being admired and passed from hand to hand, it slipped into water and was carried away in the stream. They were celebrating the baby on the bank of a river, and they dropped the baby in the water. Through the power of the virtue, the child did not die, but was swallowed by a fish and remained alive in the fish's body. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Fish's belly. It stayed alive in fish's belly. At the mouth of the river, there was a city, and in that city there lived a wealthy householder whose servants chanced to catch the fish, and that swallowed the child. When the fish was opened and child was found, the servant took it to the householder's wife, and who rejoiced greatly and exclaimed, "This is in answer to our prayers to all gods for a son." The child was given to a nurse who cared for it. So that's why. This story, name of this story is called "Man with Two Families," because his first birth is birth from the mother, second birth is from the fish. The first householder, hearing that a householder at the mouth of the river had found a child in the belly of a fish, believed that it was his child, and hurriedly going to their house, the householder said to him, "The child that you found in the fish is my son." While we were celebrating and anointing the fish on the banks of the river, it fell in the river. It unquestionably is ours. The other householder said, "You only think it is your son. It was found by us in the belly of a fish after we had prayed for all the gods. And by virtue of our prayers, the child came to us, and it is ours." You can see the India how religiously believe it. Now, both family believe it's a prayer answered by God. First one was answered by God, second one was answered by God, and the God must be shaking his heads. The two householders argued and disputed and finally took the case to the king for judgment. The child's parents pleaded, "Your Majesty, the child is ours. While we were celebrating anointing fish on the banks of the river, it fell in the water and was carried away. It is without question our child." The other householder said, "Nothing of this kind. It is we who found the child in the belly of fish." And the dispute raged back and forth. The king, seeing the difficulty of rendering a decision, said, "There's no need of going on with the argument. Both of you will bring up the child. When it grows up, each of you will choose a wife for him, and the children of each wife will belong to each family." In accordance with the king's command, the two households raised the child together. When it had come of age, the youth requested permission to become a monk. So that throw everybody's plan out of the window again. And when the parents consented, he went to the Buddha, bowed down to the feet, joined his palms in reverence, and said, "Lord, I beg to become a monk." When the Buddha said, "Welcome," his hair and beard fell away. He became a monk and was given the name Two Families. His name is Two Families. When the enlightened one had instructed him in the Dharma, he arrived at the end of suffering and attained the bliss of an arhat. So he achieved arhathood. The noble Ananda said to the Buddha, "Lord, because of what former virtues did this monk not die when he fell in the river and was swallowed by a fish and has now met the Buddha and become a monk. What is the reason for this? I mean, this is a big question, isn't it? Everybody says, how miraculous it is. What kind of good karma did he do? Or whatever. The enlightened one said, Ananda, listen well, and I shall explain it to you. Long ago, when the Buddha Vipassana had come to this earth, he instructed many people in the Dharma. At that time, a certain householder, hearing the Buddha explain the virtue of giving and the merits of keeping the precepts, had faith. There arose in him a mind of great devotion. In the presence of enlightened one, he vowed to refrain from taking life and made an offering of a single gold coin. It was due to the merits of that virtuous deed that wherever he was born, he was endowed with great wealth and was never poor. Ananda, this monk called to family, was at that time and under those circumstances that householder. Because he offered the Buddha one golden coin with a mind of firm faith, he was born with the great wealth for 61 kalpas. So he was born again and again, very wealthy. Now in his birth, although he fell in the river, he did not die. He has been brought up by two mothers in the homes of great wealth. And because he took refuge in the three gems, he has now met me and attained the state of Arhathood. Hearing these words, the Buddha, Ananda, and the great assembly believed and rejoiced greatly. So that's an incredible story, really. It's only Buddha would be able to decode the story. What kind of similar things, remotely similar things that they say happen to you? So you may wonder what sometimes something good happens to us. We say, I must have done something to deserve this. But we don't recall exact when and what we did. But we definitely don't think it came from causeless. We definitely think, I must have done something good. Even people who don't believe in law of karma, they say, oh, you must have done some good. It's intuitively people say that. So the wise people, what it means is that if some good things are happening to your life, such I'm sure you have many, you should also rejoice them and not take them for granted. Not sort of see that you are because smart or something. No, these are much more than me being smart or even if you're having some very difficult times, situations in your life that are really hard, you shouldn't think these are a result of you did something not well this life or your parents or other people who have made you to go through. You should think that these also are results of what I may have done similar things to other people. So I'm stuck with this. Because this enables us. Thinking of this, what happens is it quells your pride. Because some people are not able to accept their predicament. They just and moaning and groaning and angry why their life is like that. But because therefore they are not able to accept it. The foolish reject, wise accept. That's the whole thing. So whole point of hearing this kind of story, so that we are able to say, oh, I must have done something that I had to go through in this life. It is when it is like that. So you accept it, and you don't become angry at your past, but you rather accept it, and still you have the great humility. It gives you to be wise of humility and acceptance. Foolish end up being rejecting and angry. And that's the whole point of this kind of story. It's not so much about this boy, but this boy or girl in us that we haven't accepted, or we have accepted, and so you become wise. Because both family also become very wise to heed to the Buddha, because they were lucky to have Buddha to tell that, Most people would take them to court or whatever. These days people take it to court to each other because there weren't Buddha around. There's a court system where they just grill you and and make everybody suffer in real hell. Hell of court, they call it. Some people even threaten each other. I'll see you in a court, Really, they want you to suffer. Of course, when they could go to the Buddha, who needs to go to the court? So maybe you don't find some Buddha-like person to go to talk to about, and who would give, you both should share this boy together as a two family, and share these things and like that. Because when you don't do, then you become foolish. Both become foolish. There's no difference. Both have become foolish. And one does this, other one reacts, and they do that even more, and then there's a foolish upon foolish decision. Very seldom people make wise decisions when situation that arises. They think they are right, the other is wrong, and they say, this can't happen, this shouldn't allowed. I will resign, or you resign. People say these things. They think their resignation is a very wise decision, They later on become so alienated, and they lose all the friend, and then they don't know what they did. They still think they're right, but they're so miserable. There's the foolish ones that do that. The wise ones, don't get into that. They say, man, take it or leave it or something, and slowly just let it go, They don't want to lose a friend over that issue. Just to say they're wrong and I'm right. They don't see the point. So they're wise. They're wise to accommodate that, and so they don't lose each other over that issue. The issue is less important. People are more important. Friends are more important than the issues. Quite a lot of people have bartered issues with people. They're so attached to the issue and the opinion, and they lost a lot of people over that. That's the foolish. Sutra of wise and foolish. So mostly sutra of foolish and foolish, not wise and foolish. Mostly. One person does, four of them does, you alone are stuck because you can't follow them. You think you're foolish, you think they are wise. But in fact, if you look at it, they're all foolish. You're wise because you chose not to be reactive, childish, punitive, righteous. You may be the only one. Wise are very few, actually. Wise are very only lonely ones. The wise are actually happy to be alone, Foolish are the one who wants to mingle with the other foolish people. And they say, I must support my friend, they call it. Yeah. I notice people, the more professional people are in modern days, more foolish they are. They're so uptight. They're so boxed in their little doors, and they just cannot see anything beyond that. More professional they are, the more foolish they are. Incredible. I'm not talking about them not being professional or doing things. They may be very good at what they do, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about humanity here, between keeping a friend and losing a friend over that. Over that, they have no hesitation to cut throat so much and then drop all of that. These are the foolish people. These are the people who are bringing hell on the earth in this life without needing to go to next hell, because you don't have to believe in next life hell when you can able to bring in this life by this righteous impatience, angry and vindictive and negative and resentful. These are the foolish decisions. These are the foolish. Okay, that next one is chapter 23. the King Chandraprabha gives his head. So this is another story of very generous King Chandraprabha. Thus I've heard at one time, upon a certain occasion when the Buddha enlightened was dwelling in a mango grove at Vaishali. Now this is only a different place. Vaishali. Vaishali is where Buddha ordained women, yeah? Vaishali is where Buddha had where the Ananda's main temple is in Vaishali, because Ananda is the one who went and begged the Buddha, asking to ordain Buddha's stepmother Prajapati and 500 other women. So Vaishali, if you are really interested in Buddhist feminist history, I don't think it's a feminist history, but if you're a feminist Buddhist or you're a sympathizer of equal opportunity or something, Vaishali is a great birthplace of democracy in India. This is 400 BC, remember, and where Buddha gave ordination to women. So while Buddha may have delayed a couple of years or whatever, but Buddha ordained women in his own life. In his own life. So I don't know why some conservative Buddhist traditions are not able to promote women's ordination. Anyway, remember Vaishali. Mango Grove at Vaishali, he spoke to noble Ananda. This Buddha speaking to Ananda. Ananda, when one attends to the four bases of psychic power, four bases of psychic power refers to the four right effort, yeah? Four right effort. Or four right effort. They call four legs of miracle sometimes. One may remain in the world for an entire kalpa, you know. So it means one has the power, one has the power to remain in the world entire kalpa. Having applied myself to the four bases of psychic power, I now dwell in the world for as long as I desire. Buddha actually told Ananda that Buddha has the power to remain as long as he desires. The Lord repeated this 3 times, but Ananda had fallen into the snares of Mara, said without answering. You know, this is quite a traditional Buddhist blame to Ananda. Ananda made 8 mistakes, and one of them is this, you know. Buddha told him Buddha could remain that long, but Ananda never said, please live that long. Anyway. Again, the Buddha spoke to Ananda. Ananda, you should go into retreat and meditate upon what I've told you. Thereupon Ananda rose from his seat and went to a remote place. When Ananda had gone, Mara came to the Buddha and said, Enlightened One, you have been in the world for a long time now. You have tamed, protected, and liberated beings as many as sands of the Ganges. Now you have grown old, and it would be well if you were to enter final nirvana. So the Maras came to beg the Buddha to pass away, and because Ananda didn't ask Buddha to live long. Thereupon the Buddha took a bit of sand, placed it on his fingernail, and said to the Mara, Mara, what is the greater, the sands of the earth or the sand on my fingernail? The Mara answered, Enlightened One, sand of earth is of course greater than the sand on your fingernail. Buddha said, Mara, the beings which I have tamed and liberated are like the sand on my fingernail. Those which have not been tamed are like the sands of the great earth. But your wish will be fulfilled. Within 3 months I shall enter into final nirvana. When Mara heard this, he rejoiced greatly. So that's how this story fits very well with the life of the Buddha, where it says Shakyamuni Buddha declared that he will pass away in 3 months' time in Kushinagar. So it's really prompted from this story. At that time, Ananda was asleep in his retreat and dreaming. In his dream, he saw a mighty tree which filled the entire sky. The tree was filled with branches, leaves, flowers, and fruit, and existed for the welfare of all sentient beings. Suddenly, the tree was shaken by a great wind, which tore away the leaves and branches and scattered them like dust. Then the tree disappeared, and all beings mourned. When Ananda woke, in his mind was upset that he thought to himself, I dreamt of a great tree which was of benefit to man and gods, and suddenly great wind caused it to split and it destroyed. Can you tell how this dream is reflecting the passing away of Buddha? Buddha is like the great tree. He's the great refuge and protector of all. Could this mean that the Lord intends to enter final nirvana? In great fear, he went to the Buddha, bowed his head to the feet, and told his dream, and asked if the Buddha, Lord, intend to enter into nirvana. The enlightened one said, Thus it is, Ananda. It is just as you say. Within 3 months I shall enter and find a nirvana. He who attains the 4 bases of spirit power abides for an entire kalpa. I told you this 3 times, but you did not respond. After you had gone, Mara came and requested me to enter final nirvana, and I agreed. When Ananda heard this, he was overcome with grief. He told some of his brethren, and they in turn told others, and stricken with grief, they all came before the Buddha. The Buddha then spoke to the entire assembly, Who among you is eternal? Everything is impermanent. All that I have done has been for your sake. I have completed the work of the teaching. Do not grieve, but make every effort to exert yourself. When the noble Shariputra heard that Buddha, the enlightened one, was going to enter final nirvana, he grieved bitterly and thought, Too soon does the Lord pass over into final nirvana. Who will now be a refuge and protector to those who are obstructed by ignorance, including the gods? Then he thrice spoke to the Buddha, Lord, I cannot bear to witness the Lord pass into final nirvana. Grant that I may do this first. Because now this is an interesting story, is because Shariputra, having heard the Buddha telling he will pass away into nirvana in 3 months' time, Shariputra said, Look, I cannot bear, therefore please let me die before you. The Buddha said, If you are certain that this time has come for this, you may do so as you wish. because Buddha wasn't attached to anybody. All the noble ones enter nirvana when they have become quiescent. When Shariputra heard this, he arranged his robes, circumambulated the Lord 100 times, loaded him with many verses, touched his hands and feet, and thrice placed on them his head, and folding his palms said, I salute the Buddha. Bowing, he then went to a monk named Kunti in the city of Rajgriha, to the place where he had been born, and said, This is Nalanda, actually. In this, that doesn't say Nalanda is the place, because that's where Shariputra was born. So he went back to his village where he was born. Then he said, Kunti, go to the city, the villages, to the king's court, and to the minister's residence, say that noble Shariputra is going to enter nirvana. Come and honor him. Thereupon the monk Kunti did as his teacher had bidden him, and went about proclaiming that the noble Shariputra had come to this place and was going to attain nirvana, that they, if they wished to witness, that they should make haste. The king Ajatasattu and his noble princes, the dispenser of gifts, and the householders, hearing the proclamation, were unhappy. Their minds were troubled, and were all exclaimed in one voice, Alas, what shall I do? The master of Dharma, the leader of many beings, holy Shariputra, is now going to attain nirvana. Going to Shariputra, they bowed and said, Noble one, if you now pass beyond sorrow, who will be refuge and savior to us and all beings? Thereupon Shariputra taught them as follows. All things are without exception impermanent. The end of every birth is death. 3 worlds are subject to suffering. How will you escape death? By virtue of former good deeds you have met the enlightened one in the world. It is exceedingly difficult to hear the Dharma and the Sutras. It is very hard to obtain human body. Now bring forth virtue and exert yourself in those acts which liberate from the round. When Shariputra had taught these teachings through skill and means, even as when a physician gives remedy to the ill, all rejoice, had faith, and some attained first fruits. Some attained the second and third fruits. Some became monks and attained the fruits of the Arhat. Some, wishing to attain the bliss of Pratyeka Buddha, made a vow. All hearing his teaching, bowed to the Noble One, and each went his own way. Then at midnight, Shariputra attained the equanimity of body and mind, and establishing his thoughts and reaching one-pointedness, entered the dhyana. Rising from the first dhyana, he entered the second, third, and fourth. Rising from the fourth dhyana, he entered the realm of infinity of space. Rising from that realm, he entered the realm of nothingness. And rising from that realm, he entered the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. Rising from that, he arrived at the cessation of perception and sensation. Then Indra, the ruler of gods, knowing Shariputra had attained nirvana, offered incense and flowers, and proceeding with many hundreds of thousands of gods, he filled the sky, came to where Shariputra had brought down showers of tears and flowers, and said, "Ah, the holy noble Shariputra, who was profound in this like the sea, who has endowed with the door of wisdom, whose vigor of speech is like a flowing spring, who was perfect in the precepts, samadhi, wisdom, who was the great chief of Dharma, and like unto him after the Buddha himself, there was no teacher of Dharma, and has now entered nirvana and gone beyond." When all those who lived within and without the city heard that Shariputra had attained nirvana, they prepared oil lamps, incense, flowers, and various offerings, came with great sorrow and grief, each to make this offering. Then the Lord of gods, Indra, commanded Vishwakarma to construct a chariot adorned with many jewels. When this had been done, Shariputra's body was placed in it, and accompanied by gods, Nagas, Yakshas, king and his princes and ministers, and all people of country accompanied to a beautiful level plain. Then Indra commanded the Yakshas to go to the ends of the earth for sandalwood, and they brought it out and formed a pyre. The body was placed upon it, oil was poured over it, and it was cremated. And then each returned to their own country. So this story, even though this story features Shariputra's death, but yet this sutra is not named after that, So sometimes you can't really tell from the name of the sutra, even though it's really passing away of Shariputra, because Shariputra definitely passed away before the Buddha. So this is so when you read the sutra, it tells quite a lot of story of disciples. When Ananda heard the monk's words, he was greatly grieved and said to Buddha, "Lord, now Shariputra, who was foremost of the assembly, has attained nirvana. Upon whom shall we depend? To whom shall we look for help?" So they of course, Buddha was still there, The Buddha said, "Ananda, Shariputra, who has now attained nirvana, was not the precepts, samadhi, and liberation, transcendental wisdom, enlightenment, the Dharmakaya, nor nirvana. Ananda, this is not the first time that Shariputra has preceded me in nirvana. In times long past, he has also unable to bear my attaining nirvana before he did and preceded me." So Buddha is saying that this is not first time that Shariputra has predeceased me. He's done this before in many lives, Then Ananda folded his palms and said, "Lord, I beg you to relate in detail how in foremost Shariputra attained nirvana before the Lord." Because then, Ananda became very interested. "Okay, can you tell me when was that? What?" And then Buddha said, "Ananda, in times long past, eons ago, eons past reckoning, past conceiving, there was a king who ruled over Jambudvipa by the name of Chandraprabha. who had 84,000 minor kings subject to him, and ruled over 90,000 countries, 90,000 cities, and had 20,000 wives. His first queen name was Giver of Flowers. His second queen was called Large Eyes, and had 500 sons. The elder son's name was Good Precepts, and the palace where he resided was called Pleasant Desire, was 500 yojanas long, and was constructed of gold, silver, lapis lazuli, and crystal. Around the palace there were groves of trees of gold, silver, and lapis lazuli. Some of the branches were of gold and leaves of silver. Some of the branches were silver and leaves of gold. The sand at the bottom of the pools in the park was of the 4 kinds of jewels which had dropped into the water and sunk at the bottom. From a distance of 30 yojana, ground around the palace, around the place was covered with gold, silver, and lapis lazuli crystal. In that country, everyone was happy. The crops thrived, and there was an abundance of everything and jewels without number. Upon a certain occasion, the king sat in his palace and thought, "To become a leader of all this is the fruit of former virtues. For those who are mighty in the world and honored by all, the objects of 5 desires appear as soon as they are wished for. It is like a farmer who labors in the spring and reaps good crops in the autumn. Through the harvest of former virtues, I have arrived at this abundance. But I do not plant more seeds now. What will the future harvest be?" Calling his ministers together, he said to them, "Ministers, collect and pile up all my jewels and treasures at the city gates and in the marketplace, and distribute them to all beings. Also convey any command to all 84,000 subjects, kings. They are to give their treasure to living beings." When the king had given this command, the golden banner was furled, and golden drum was beaten, and the tidings spread all directions. Then the monks and Brahmins and beggars and all those without protection and destitute came together like a great cloud. There who were naked were given clothing, hungry were fed, those who had nothing were given gold, silver, and jewels. The sick were given medicines, cared for, and needs of all were met. And then the beings of the Jambudvipa lauded and praised the king for the happiness and welfare, and he had brought about his name and fame spread to the 10 directions, and there was no one who disobeyed his command. At that time there was a minor king by the name of Singhasena, who lived in the border country and who had grown so envious of King Chandraprabha, who had found no pleasure in life and could no longer sleep. The king thought, "Unless Chandraprabha is done away with, my fame will never be known. I shall bring together all the beggar folk in my kingdom and find a way of putting an end to him." He then invited all the beggars in his kingdom, fed them on various kinds of delicious foods for 10 months, then said to them, "Happiness eludes me day and night. Since you follow the Dharma, are the recipients of my hospitality, you should think of some way of removing my suffering." The mendicant Brahmin said, "Your Majesty, tell us the cause of your misery, and we shall attempt to alleviate it." King said, "Everyone praises the virtue of a king called Chandraprabha. Everyone pays him special honor, and I alone am not praised for my virtues. It would be difficult to do away with that king, I know, but you must be able to think of some way of making him disappear." When the Brahmins heard this, they spoke among themselves, but King Chandraprabha is greatly compassionate, and all beings are happy because of his benevolence. And he is like a father to all the mendicants. How could we possibly cause harm to such a king?" And immediately they dispersed and went to other places. When King Singhasena heard that the mendicant had said, he was not pleased, nor did he rejoice. He sent a proclamation throughout his country saying, "Whoever will cut off the head of the King Chandraprabha and bring it to me will share half of my kingdom, have my daughter to wed." A Brahmin from whom the mountains heard this went to see the king, and with beaming face said, "Your Majesty, I can fulfill your desire." The king said, "When?" Brahmin told him, "Please give me necessary provision, and within a week I shall set out." For a week the Brahmin repeated magic formulas and protect him, then started out in journey. At that time, many evil omens appeared in the land of King Chandraprabha. Earth split, lightning flashed, stars fell, people slept during both day and night, and Nagas thundered, roared, hail and lightning struck. Many birds made wailing sounds in the sky and fell on the earth. Tigers, wolves, panthers, and other wild animals made ugly noises and seemed to be in misery, and 84,000 minor kings dreamt that golden drum has burst. The minister Mahachandra dreamt that a Preta had come and stolen the king's golden crown. When the people saw these evil signs, they feared greatly. When the Brahmin who sought the king's head came to the gateway of the royal city, the god who guarded it refused to let him enter. Slowly the Brahmin walked around the city walls 7 times, but could not find entry and he sat down outside. Thereupon the god of the pure realm, knowing that the king Chandraprabha might give his head in order to become perfect in giving, appeared to him in a dream and said, "King, great king, you have vowed to give away everything you have. There is now a Brahmin beggar at the city gate who cannot enter. You should be aware of this." When the king awoke, he was greatly astonished and said to his minister Mahachandra, "Minister, go to the city gates and see if there is someone there who is not allowed to enter. If so, let him come in." When the minister arrived at the gates, the protecting gods manifested himself to him and said, "Minister, this evil-minded Brahmin who is sitting here has come from a border region and seeks the king's head. I have been commanded to let him in. What should I do?" The minister said, "If this were true, there would have been some evil omen. The king's command cannot be disobeyed. The guardian god who created no obstacles and allowed the Brahmin to enter." Immediately the thought came to the minister that the Brahmin did indeed want the king's head, and he thought, "I shall have 500 heads made of the 7 precious jewels and offer these in the place of the head of the king." The Brahmin immediately went to the king's palace and cried out in a loud voice, "O king, I'm a beggar who has come from a far country. I've heard that you have vowed to give whatever one desires. I've come from a far distance for something from your majesty." When the king heard this, he was delighted, bowed to the Brahmin, asked him if he was weary after his journey, and he then asked him what he wanted: property, a whole city, wives, children, jewels, carriages, elephants, horses, 7 kinds of jewels, male, female slaves, and promised to give him whatever he wanted. The Brahmin said, "Your Majesty, all the gifts of goods and property are exceedingly valuable. It is not the greatest of gifts, but one who were to make a gift of flesh from one's own body, that would be surpassed. King, I have come from a far country to ask for your head. Do not refuse my request, I beseech you." Hearing this, the king's joy knew no bounds, and he promised to give his head to the Brahmin. When asked when he would make the gift, king said, "I shall give it to you within 7 days." The minister Mahachandra then brought the heads made of 7 precious jewels, arranged them in a pile, and said to the Brahmin, "Guru, king's head is of flesh and blood and unclean. What would you do with it? Let me give you these heads, which are made out of 7 precious jewels. They will make you wealthy and the rest of your life. Take them and do not ask king's head." The Brahmin replied, "I have no need for such things. What I require is the king's head. Do not create obstacles, but let my request be fulfilled." Knowing that the Brahmin could not be dissuaded, the minister's heart broke in 7 pieces and died from horror and grief. The king then sent out a messenger on an elephant to announce that within 7 days he would give his head to the Brahmin, and that all were to be present. Were to present themselves immediately. The minor kings came, bowed to the king, knelt, pressed their palms together, and spoke, "Your Majesty, you are Lord of the whole Jambudvipa. Through your grace, of all beings are happy. Why do you abandon all beings for the sake of a single man?" Then the 80,000 ministers, 20,000 queens, and 500 prices all begged, princess maybe, not prices. And 500 prices all begged. So there are printing errors like this. These are major ones. 500 prices all begged king to refrain them from giving the head. The king then spoke, "Listen, all of you. Since beginner's time, the body of man has been circling in the cycle of rebirth and death. It has participated in exceedingly sinful acts and has never once been source of merit. For a long time it was in hell, where it was cooked in filthy water and burnt in pits of fire and underwent countless agonies. When born in the realms of animals, which kill each other, it deprived other living beings of life, and it ate their flesh and became putrid and created not the slightest merit. When born among the hungry goats, it endured countless suffering by having fire and flames shoot from it. Its head hacked with the wheels of knives, being destroyed and going through it all over again. Its eyes glittered with greed for wealth and property for women. As a preta, I fought with the other hungry goats. We killed each other and died countless times through the power of greed, hatred, and delusion, never attained through virtue. I now reject this body. It is engendered by filth. Engendered by filth. It is not eternal. It is quickly destroyed. And since by giving my head will be of great merit, why should I not give it? By virtue of giving my head to this Brahmin, supreme enlightenment will be achieved, and when the enlightenment of the Buddha will have been realized, I will be perfect in the virtues. Then, through skill and means, I shall deliver you all your sufferings, from all your suffering. Do not now create obstacles." When the minor kings, queens, and princes heard this, they could think of nothing to say. The great king then said to Brahmin, "Guru, the time has come. You may now have my head." Brahmin said, "Your Majesty, how dare I cut your head here in the midst of this great assembly? If you really deign to give me your head, let us go by ourselves into the forest." The king said to the ministry, "If you truly revere me, you will do no harm to the Brahmin." And he and Brahmin went to the forest. The Brahmin said, "Your Majesty, your body is very powerful, and I fear that it will react when the pain comes. You tie yourself to a tree." The king then tied himself to a tree which was covered with blossoms and flowers, and knelt on the ground and said to the Brahmin, "Now, Brahmin, cut off my head. I give it to you willingly. The virtue which I obtain from this is not obtain birth of as Amara, Brahma, Indra, or Chakravartin. I do not seek the pleasures of the three worlds. I do this to attain the supreme enlightenment, to lead all beings to nirvana." Just as Brahmin raised his sword, God of the tree said, "Why do you commit this sinful act?" and struck the Brahmin across the face. The Brahmin tripped and fell to the ground. The king, seeing the god of the tree, said, "The former times I have given my head at this tree 999 times. By giving it once more, perfection of giving will be complete. Do not create an obstacle to my attaining supreme enlightenment." Hearing this, the tree god brought the Brahmin back to consciousness. He got back on his feet, took his sword, and chopped off the king's head. Immediately, the earth, the great earth trembled 6 ways. The palaces of the gods shook, and the gods, seeking the reason for this, and seeing that the Bodhisattva had given his head for the sake of all living beings, came together, wept, and letting all shower of tears, said, King Chandrabipa has given his head, and the paramita of giving has been perfected. When the king Singhasena heard this, his heart burst and he died. When the Brahmin had taken the king's head, and all the minor kings and minister queens and princes threw themselves on the ground and wailed loudly, pulled out their hair, some scratched their faces and screamed. The Brahmin took the king's head, walked for a short distance, and threw it away. And then other Brahmins, seeing this, said to him, You are evil. Why did you take the king's head? And they refused to let him approach. All who met him on the road reviled him, refused to give him alms. As he went along starving, he heard the king's Singhasena had died. Becoming terrified, his heart burst. Because his heart must be his heart. His heart burst, he vomited blood and died. There's another big imprinting error. Ananda, at that time, Mara was King Singhasena, Devadatta was the evil Brahmin, Moggallanaputra was the tree god, and Shariputra was the minister Mahachandra, who, unable to bear his grief, died before the king. Now, having learned that I shall attain nirvana, he has attained it first. So that's talking about how Shariputra has done this before. When the Buddha said, thus spoken, the noble Ananda and all the great assembly praised and lauded the amazing virtues of the Buddha, and by exertion in meditation, some attained 4 fruits, some attained supreme enlightenment, all had faith in the Buddha's word and rejoiced. So that's a big story about incredible act of sacrifice when Buddha made in his previous lives, and how Shariputra is related in past lives as well. So this, what does this say is about each and every one of us have number of things happen with some people in our lives. And this is not the first time that you and that some person has been like this to each other. Some kind of unfinished, incomplete karma between the two of you has happened before, and therefore this is not the first time, and therefore one should not be shocked. Some difficulties happen, or some amazing good things also happen, but this is not the first time. This happens quite a lot of time, and so therefore the wise one, from the wise teaching counsel from this story, is that whatever happens in your life, you shouldn't be shocked as the unprecedented thing this is happening to you. No, this has happened many, many times. And this is not the first time at all. We just don't remember them. And the same goes with the people who are alive, our mother and father, this is not first time that she has been our mother and been as kind as she was. And not only that, those people who we do not see them our mother because they're not our mother, actually has been our mothers. We just don't remember them. So these are the wise counsels. The Buddhist real teachings of Buddhism is that you should not dismiss things as so hard. These happened many, many times before, and some people have done us so much good, kind deeds. They sacrifice us so much, many times, and we still kind of appreciate, even in these things they did in this life. They have done this many, many times due to mutual karma. It's like that. And so therefore, if you keep having difficulties with some people, this is not the difficulty the people are being. You have been like this, always pain in the neck to yourself and whoever you have had. They're just repeating again and again. And so you should be a little bit gentler and accept some responsibility as a wise thing, and not reject, why me, like that. This happens all the time. Karma is so inescapable. You cannot escape the consequences of past karma one has created. And also good things that you have, you should not be surprised. You deserve this. You have been good many times. So therefore you have precious human rebirth. Therefore you have faith in the triple gem. Therefore you believe in the Dharma. Therefore you are able to practice patience when others doesn't. Therefore you just let it go because others wouldn't. So these things are good things. So you should accept things wisely, and don't think it's a wrong thing, it's a weak thing, it's a stupid thing. But it's a wise thing to accept the blames, to accept hardships, and be patient. It's good to be patient because there's no danger of you being patient so many times. There's more danger of you forgetting to be patient, and whenever you're meant to be patient, you are less ready. So it's very important to say, maybe this is the time I should be patient, and that's why I'm having to face this, because I'm always very impatient. So this is the wise story. Story is how to be wise, how to be diligent, how to be tolerant, how to be forgiving, how to be forgiving to somebody, You think they did too wrong, they're not worthy of forgiving, As we have so much to lose, as we have so much to suffer by accepting the loss, You wouldn't believe how wise it is to accept losses and setbacks now without making noises. This is the very, very good karma, good merit, to be able to accept that. And this will tell your mind very strong. You become very stronger and stronger every time you accept defeats, accept accusation, accept blames. Whatever people do, it's not entirely their doing. It's mostly your doing. It looks like it's their doing to you, but it's your own doing from past. They're just the messenger. You are the one who sent the message, and you are the recipient. So don't blame the messenger. That's the wise, Foolish blames the messenger. Foolish blame the messenger, and do not accept because they're not wise. They don't learn anything. They don't learn anything. Wise ones accept responsibilities. Hard and bitter truth it is. But every time they accept, they become stronger. And that's a merit. That's a wisdom. So that's why it's very important that these stories is not about Chandraprabha. It's not story about Shariputra and the Buddha. Shariputra and the Buddha are just examples. And the real story that we need to understand is the George in us, or Penny in us, or Dawa in us, or Karchung in us, whatever name you have, that you haven't quite come to grips in accepting things. Very hard to be wise, Very easy to be foolish. You don't have to have any, you don't need much brain. The size of chicken will do to be foolish. Chicken brain will do. You can be very foolish. To be wise, you have to be really thoughtful. It's bitter pain and the truth. Whether you have accepted someone like your son or daughter-in-law or not, all those sorts of things, Whether you've been agreeing with somebody over this or that we always choose the foolish way. righteous one and really angry and very difficult to be the wise, in the story, whoever makes the wise, very difficult to do that. Everybody was dissuading the king from letting his head being cut off by the Brahmin. Nobody says, it would be good, your Majesty, very good. Nobody said, Your Majesty, good to have your head cut. Nobody said that. But he was the only. So sometimes we have to go alone. We don't go with the mob. No wonder why some of the disciples of Buddha were called rhinoceros, solitary realizers. They are the only ones who decide to spend alone in the caves. Majority are over having party and going here and there and frolicking themselves and having a sensorially good time for a few days, a few hours, That's why caves are very lonely places. There are hardly one or two wise person doing meditation. All the noisy, clubs and dancing floors and drinking places are full with so many people. They have to be guarded by bouncers and smoky and dark and noisy and almost like, why would people go in there? But people are thronging there, They call it happy hour. All they're getting is trouble there. And yet they're drinking things they should never drink. They're spending hours they don't have usually for doing practices. Then they have lots of time to be with the foolish people. Then they're so willing to shout or drink to each other. When it comes to doing good deeds, to save a life of a fish or a poor child who is not getting proper medication, people seeking donations, people still don't, they only give changes, Even that they don't want it. They say, why would I give this much? Giving material things is considered nothing. The real giving is great giving one's own body. So here the story of the Buddha's past lives, like himself and Shariputra, is that the Buddha has given his life many times, his head many times. It is not so much the purpose of giving was alleviate the hunger of someone or something like that. But the Bodhisattva have to do certain things that nobody does. This is beyond most people's imagination or able to accept it. So when things happen in our lives, we need to also understand in that context. So I think we'll stop there, because next story is a little too long to be able to finish with the time. There's a lot there in these two stories we have read. It's not so much the story, but the pointing, the teaching, that we are often unable to unravel our situations and why we have someone like that or someone like that, someone not like that. And there are reasons. There are karmic reasons. You don't get someone so special in your life unless you have earned merit. So you should rejoice that. Even someone that is very difficult in your life, their existence in life is meant to help us to exhaust our karma. We need to be gentle with them. They are not independently forcing upon us. They too were drawn by their own karma. They were mutually drawn by the karma. There is no choice. You cannot choose consequences of past deeds. You can't say, no, I don't want that. You must have to have that. When the fruit is ripened, it falls off the branches. It looks much more prettier sitting on the tree, but when it is ripened, it falls off, it rots, it falls down. It has a limited number of days how pretty it is on the tree, and some of them may not even have time to ripe. Before they ripe, birds will pick them up, pull them into pieces. So all the fruits, unless they're picked up, they will all drop and rot. Even those fruit that we picked are eventually not going to stay as fruit, They're going to be non-fruit. They're going to be our dinner. So have some mercy upon the fruit. Being put like the fish. Like the fish swallow the baby, we are swallowing the peach. We are swallowing the barramundi. Yes, some people are swallowing barramundi. Whole barramundi at dinner. So it's not, instead of fish swallowing the baby, many people are swallowing the fish. And the karma, everything we do have consequences. So how wise is wise and how foolish is foolish? They are very, very fine difference, very, very minor difference. And many things happen in people's life within an hour. Some things happen. Incredible reactions. In this crisis of what's happening in Nepal, some of you may not have heard or read, this incredible demonstration was launched by young people against the corruption of the government, and who, for some reason, wanted to put a ban over many of the social media, and saying that all the social media platforms were not registered with the government, and people are using, and the government gave a deadline, and that they will ban the social media unless they were registered. And then the young people thought that was the kind of the only thing they can enjoy is social media, and they communicate with their friends everywhere around the world and so on. And when the government, who's so corrupt, has made that gave the deadline, then the violence, the demonstration erupted, and because the government was so foolish in ordering the police to shoot the young children demonstrating on the street. They not only killed about 20 young people, but the young people then unleashed their wrath. They made the whole government to resign. Many former prime ministers' houses were all burnt into fire. Some of the biggest government buildings, like Singhadharba, very beautiful palace, and well as all the big businesses, hotels, Hilton hotels, whatever, they're all burnt within 24 hours. You couldn't believe the kind of action. How something could completely can go wrong. So poor a country, but so vandalism. The vandals and hooliganism, even though they want change, but they have no idea what they were doing. Because they fill the street, everybody, they have no plan to do that, but yet they did it. They thought they were demanding to stop the ban of the social media, but what they did is they burned the government, they burned the kingdom, they burned the houses, they burned all the... some people were killed, you know. You wouldn't believe when the people are foolishly following the one or another, even though they may have well-intended reason to demonstrate against them a corrupt government and so on, but it went too out of control. So these are how it's all foolish results. So poor country, one of the bottom. Nepal is poorest in the poorest, corrupt and the corrupt, and the method to resolve that, what they did was they put everything in fire. It is this kind of karma, collective or a mob karma, we can call it mob karma, mob karma, even the youth, you know, unaided by any wisdom, yes. So you can see this kind of suffering, violence, war happening around different parts of the world, such a collective negative karma. Some of this could be this kind of situations that could be elucidated by this sutra, wise and foolish, so that we can learn to exercise restraint of our thoughts, of our words, of our deeds in relation to instigation by other people, you know. So easy to instigate and poison each other as something wonderful will be achieved. But if one doesn't do it carefully, people have no idea what they did. And then 36 hours later, those very people who set the buildings on fire, now they are among those people cleaning. Could you believe it? So, the wise and foolish, swinging between wisdom and foolishness, selfishness and selflessness, generosity, mildness, anger with love, and resentment with guilt, and all of this. So with this, we'll conclude here, everyone. Thank you very much for you to be listening when I'm reading this. So my reading has a greater many meanings when so many of you are listening, and then many others will listen, no doubt, because we realize many people are listening and watching more than those who are present here in this session, but more people who hear the story of the Buddha and even the name of the Buddha they hear, it will implant seed of virtue and in their minds, and so slowly, that's how good seeds of virtue are planted by thus I've heard once upon a time. So with this we do the dedication merit. Thank you, everyone. From the Ajana Pada Desined Herenda Mayana Jiji whatever merit I have mehobe begas delavas to the Mahayana Jiji courage Manjushanyavade Azama Tabadra Delava following all days Zambo Aja de Ode Mere Mede Salambo de Jeda Teba Vera Naya Danza Veras Bembo Medengr Preleveda de Genera. Thank you.